us this morning for a quick news conference in regards to the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Across this city and certainly across the state, folks are wondering what this means for us here at home. And we know that this is probably one of the largest protections that women across this country have had over the last half century. And unfortunately, we are seeing those protections rolled away, along with protections in voting rights, along with protections in housing, just protections in areas to where there shouldn't even be policy conversations. And today we're back again to talk about yet another instance to where those in high places have deemed folks on the ground, folks like our aunts and our aunties, our sisters, our mothers, deemed them invaluable. And so today we just want to kind of share what this means for Augusta, Richmond County, and some of your local Democratic elected officials will lead us in that conversation. And so we will hear from State Representative Gloria Frazier, State Senator Harold Jones, District Attorney Jared Williams, and State Representative Wayne Howard, in that order. Representative Frazier.
Good morning. I believe Democrats and the majority of Americans believe women in this country should have the right to make their own health care decisions. We will always be the party fighting for reproductive rights. And from every state legislature in this country all the way to Congress in Washington, D.C. Last Friday, the decision by the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade that gives any woman the right to an abortion if they so desire, whatever their social or economic background is, was an abomination of American freedom. In 1973, when Roe versus Wade decision was passed, I was 18 years old, a senior in high school, living in a small town in Louisiana. I did not know the significance of this legislation until I left home, went off to school, was much older, because it was not taught in my government, and at that time it was called your civic class. We are rolling back 50 years of women's rights done by ultra-conservative Supreme Court majority who only wants to hold on to power by now deciding who lives or dies. Georgia House Bill 481 passed in the House of Representatives and the Senate unanimously, and Governor Kemp signed this bill into law in 2019. I voted against this legislation. This was a trigger bill that would prevent physicians in Georgia from performing abortions beyond 6 weeks, except in special situations. Well, many women do not even know they are pregnant in 6 weeks. And by this time, it's too late to make that choice of an abortion if you so desire. With Republicans in power, states could make abortion illegal without exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Women and doctors could be criminally charged. We stand today in Augusta with thousands of women across this country holding Republicans accountable for their attacks on our rights and freedoms. Now, how do we do this? By voting them out of office and replacing them with strong Democrats that can make these tough decisions. My right cannot be judged by a group of conservatives who decide that I now do not have choices in what I do with my body. I am a female. I have daughters, and I want them to be able to make that choice if they so desire. Thank you.
Good morning. So we just want to make a few things clear. Number one, that the majority of Americans and the majority of Georgians actually believe in the right to choice. And that is why this draconian decision has caused such a negative ripple effect across our country. Also, let's also be clear that the right to choose as it currently stands in the current law in Georgia still does exist. The 11th Circuit still has to rule on Georgia's heartbeat bill, HB 481. We would expect that they will rule that it is constitutional because of this most recent ruling. But as of right now, the current law still does exist in Georgia, and we want persons to be aware of that. What can we be doing right now? And I think, number one of those things have already taken place with our district attorney, who said that they're not going to be prosecuting women or doctors that participate in abortions. That's first. But secondly, we'd also like, the city of Atlanta has kind of taken the lead on this with their city police department, where they asked their city police department to make these type of penalties, if they go through, to be a low priority. We had also asked that our local sheriff's department would make any type of abortion penalty, if it goes through, to make that a low priority as far as arrests are concerned. Third, we want to make sure that November is coming, and we have to elect persons who believe in choice. And right now, there's no doubt that that's only the Democrats that believe in choice and are going to actually overturn HB 481. That's going to be the key theme. But whether we elect Stacey Abrams, which is number one, and then also when we elect Jen Jordan, our Attorney General, we be paramount to making those efforts come forth. And then fourth, we want to encourage our federal officials to actually codify Roe and Casey to where it would become a federal right to actually have the right to choose. And that is the key. So those are the things that we can be doing right now, but we also want persons to be realizing that right now, today, the right to choose as it currently stood under law, it still does exist in Georgia until the 11th Circuit makes a ruling. We're not sure when that will be, but as of today, it still does stand. But those are the things we can do to go forward, and we continue to hope that we can make sure that this does not stand. The reason why this is going on throughout the country is because this is unprecedented to actually have this type of precedent to actually be overturned after 50 years of jurisprudence. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jared Williams, and I represent the people of the state of Georgia and all felony matters occurring in the Burke and Richmond counties. On Friday, I announced that my office will not prosecute women and their doctors for reproductive health care decisions. The people of my district are entitled to know why. Earlier this year, I prosecuted a father who, over the course of years, raped his daughter day in and day out. That young woman was a victim of one of the most heinous crimes on our books. One of the most heinous crimes imaginable. She got pregnant with her attacker's child, with her father's child, with her rapist's child. Some of the laws that may be triggered by this recent Supreme Court decision would ask me to turn around and, while in the same breath prosecuting the rapist, incestuous father, prosecute the victim as well. Ask yourselves, how could I successfully prosecute that rapist if the victim is afraid to talk to me because she can go to prison too? Why would I take a survivor of such a horrid event and allow the system to make her a victim all over again? The answer is I can't. The answer is I won't. It is my job to do what's best for the community here, and I don't concern myself with public opinion. My singular focus is public safety. As long as I am district attorney, the women in our community will have the same rights as the men. A woman will never have to choose between her own life and the fear of death or punishment. A victim of sexual assault will never have to choose between prison and carrying her rapist child to term. Thank you.
I'll take this position over here since I'm not tall enough. Okay. Good morning. My name is Representative Henry Wayne Howard, and I stand before you today on an issue that is very delicate to this community and to this country, and we can see it by the way the public has come out in all parts of the country protesting one way or the other. Now, I stand here as a man with me personally, my faith does not tell me to disagree with abortion. But America has become a country of choices. And we have choices in everything that we do, everywhere we go. And women should have the right to choose their reproductive rights. And I'm on Health and Human Services, and we're talking about House Bill 481, was it?
Yes.
And I sat in that committee room when this was the very beginning of what the state of Georgia was took on as an abortion bill. I must tell you that there was about 90% of the committee was made up of men, and maybe 10% were females. And that was a vote that carried this bill, moved this bill forward to the House floor. Now, if this is so important to men to come with a law that that infringes on women's reproductive rights, then why don't we come up with a law for men? We're not going to do it because we will be going against our own word. We're not going to make a law that would infringe on men's reproductive rights. So I stand here with you today saying that I support the position of women having choices. I wouldn't want anyone to tell my daughter or my wife what choices they have to make. And that I would stand with them until the end if someone tried to tell them that they had to do a certain thing just because these men have made the decision for you. That's my position, and I'll hold it right there. Thank you.
For either the representative or the senator, a lot of discussion online moving forward is concerning, especially with Justice Thomas's comments, contraception, gay rights, gay marriage. What has to happen statewide? Georgia, 49 other states. What needs to happen statewide to protect those rights?
The only way that you could protect, based on his comments, was you have to do something similar to what we did in HB 481, which is to say that you actually have a right to due process to those particular items. Because when you look at his concurrence, he did talk about, why don't we address contraceptives? Why don't we talk about marriage equality? So he specifically put it out there that he wants to address all of these particular issues because the right to choose was based on right to privacy, due process rights, and he says, well, since we're overturning this, why don't we look at those other things? So the state would actually have to codify those as actual rights and not rely on the Supreme Court. So I think that's what the state would have to do moving forward on those particular issues.
I am very, very concerned about that. Actually, we were in a discussion just the other day with a group of women where we had already pretty much kind of mirrored some of the arguments that were going on. Like, so if we ban, if all the states make it illegal, well, we got like 25 states now, I believe it's right at 25 that that you can actually travel to for a legal abortion, and now it's going to be similar to what we did back when we were doing marijuana and hemp, trying to get that over. If you cross over the line, then you were going to be criminalized and possibly put in jail. So that is a lot of conversation going on about that. We're hoping that our next governor, Stacey Abrams, when we put her in place, that a lot of these laws can be reverted or not come to Georgia, if that is, if it can happen. But right now with the Supreme Court decision, I'm very concerned, and so are many, many others, about where we are going with this across the United States, because you have to understand, we have a conservative Supreme Court, the highest court in the nation, that have overturned their own colleagues' work 50 years ago. So what is that saying about America when you have your own Supreme Court justices overturning their own work?
To what you just said, how do you prove it's not just a woman traveling on vacation? How do you prove?
So the right to travel is also a constitutional right. And so the problem with that is someone who has a car or the ability to buy a flight is always going to be able to access those services. It's poor people, it's marginalized people, people of color, who are not going to have the benefit to exercise that right.
Would make note that in Justice Kavanaugh's concurrence, he stated that this would not apply to the right to travel. A person would be able to travel, which is kind of interesting, though, because actually says you don't have the right to have the procedure, but he's going to give you the right to travel to get something that says you don't have a constitutional right to do. So it's a total inconsistency, quite frankly, and it's really an acknowledgement that the decision is wrong, but it's obviously a political decision, because all of these questions have already been asked before. Make no mistake, everything that was in the concurrence, everything that was in the opinion, all of these things have been addressed before. So when these judges went in front of Congress and said they hadn't made up their mind, obviously they had made up their mind, because they presented nothing new. All of these arguments have been presented before. They had a political agenda to overturn Roe, and that's what this is all about. And that's why you have to stand firm to make sure that we don't go backwards at this time.
Any further questions? Thank you for coming today, and I hope that the main takeaway that you get is that this Richmond County Democratic Party will continue to stand on the side of women all over our city, all over this state, and across this nation, because a woman's right to choose is her sacred right, and we're going to do everything that we can to protect that. So thank you all for being here. Please feel free to stick around and chit-chat with our representatives, but we are adjourning this news conference. Thank you so much.